I embrace Finnegan's energy as a 7-year-old looking forward to his birthday tomorrow. As we honor volunteers this week, I think for the most part, volunteers who I think everyone here is a volunteer. Imagine though the energy of that Finnegan has for his birthday as a volunteer shows up to help out at the local Evergreen Center or the local food bank. I know a sister of mine, Joanne, my oldest sister, is recently retired at 56 as a principal, and she is, if you think I'm a little bit energetic, my older sister, I can't even keep up with her. She's in those stages the first few months of just like, what am I going to do? And I've said to Joe, you're always the volunteer type. But I say with this love to my sister, she likes to be the boss. And so she'll do something incredible with kids, or she'll find, right now she's just got to unwind from 30 years of work. But, being a volunteer, I think you need a lot of passion. I think you need a lot of grace to be a volunteer, because sometimes when you're a volunteer, you find out when you sign up for something, it's not what you expected it to be. When you're a volunteer, there's no heavenly place where everything's perfect. Volunteers find out very quickly. If you think it was rough at work, it can be rough volunteering as well. It doesn't all go away because you suddenly become a volunteer. But when you give from your heart, like I think Mary does for Jesus, I think just about anything's possible. So I want to go this way with today's story. I think some of my most meaningful times in my life is actually being a volunteer. And I'll give you an example of it. I got a job at a nursing home in Brampton to cut grass, and I was just out cutting my grass thing, and I can still remember Miss Harper. She was in charge of the nursing staff there, and she actually cared about me deeply. She was like a sergeant in command. I was scared of her, but I still remember she came charging out at me, and she pointed her finger at me, and she was so wise. She said, "Mr. Benham, you put a shirt on. You're gonna get skin cancer one day if you don't put that." She was so. I went, "Oh, put my shirt on." I was like, "Oh, it's hot, showing off the bod, right?" But where I'm going with this, what she taught me is there was a happy hour every day at Tullamore, and it was 4:00 every day. And I didn't do a lot of work in that happy hour, but I went to visit people. And next thing you know, 4:00 would become 6:00. And I met some of the most special people in my life. People who just wanted to have a glass of wine or a beer at the end of the day. And I heard the most incredible stories. And what I noticed is volunteers made that happy hour happen. And it was such a delight just to see people enjoying themselves. It's a simple story, but those people I'm still friends. You've heard about my friend I go to Buffalo with, Mary? I met Mary. I met her in that happy hour. And 30 plus years later, she still drives me crazy, and I still love her, and I know I drive her crazy. She said to me recently, when our furnace broke down recently, I've had to store a lot of her stuff as she's transitioned in life, so I have no more space for it. And there was this horrible heater that you put your hands in, it just burned the place down. And one day I just said to my wife, "This is going." And then sure enough, every time I throw anything out, she calls me the next week. "Have you got that heater?" So this week I tell her about how generous Trinity. I had people offer, my furnace goes down. I had I had better heat in my house than my old furnace, all these electrical heaters. And she, of course, says, "If you hadn't thrown out my heater," she said, "that heater goes back she went back a few generations. That heater was the best heater ever." And I tried to buy her a new one the following Christmas after throwing it. It didn't work. It had to be that heater. And then she just ended it with grace. She said, "Well, let's just hope that somebody else is enjoying the heater that you threw away." Ron, I'm not giving you any of her stuff this week. Don't worry. You come to my place. So, Mary, another Mary. Mary lavishes Jesus with this incredible generosity. And wouldn't you know it, there's always somebody in the crowd who's got something to complain about. And of course, it has to be Judas, the one who actually will sell Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And he's freaking out about the poor and how could she do this unbelievable thing. And what John, the writer of the gospel, is pretty clear. He's stating pretty clearly, Judas is trouble. He also represents a lot of the religious people of the time. They knew that Jesus loved Lazarus, and as the scripture says, they were out to get Lazarus after this incredible act that Mary had to know. You anoint the feet of kings, a servant king like Jesus. You anoint those who are going to die or have died. And so this is a huge turning point in the gospel, a preparation for what is to come. And it's pretty unbelievable. I spoke with the 9 o'clock service people about this, and they said, imagine Jesus going out of this place. He probably smelt for days of this incredible perfume as he travels to Jerusalem. There's this lingering smell of her love for him, and yet death awaiting him. It's an incredible story. 9 o'clock service, though, we had an interesting conversation. I wanted to bounce this off you. Someone said, because I said to them, I say to you, have you ever been lavished in a loving way that just overwhelmed you? Because the one thing abundantly clear from Jesus, this is really important, Jesus didn't say, oh, no, Mary, no, that's got to go to the poor. Jesus said, Jesus didn't say anything. He actually received it. And some wise soul in the 9 o'clock said, I find it extremely embarrassing when someone lavishes a gift on me. And I said to her, I feel the same way. I said, what do you feel? She says, when I'm lavished a gift, I feel like I must reciprocate. And I said, yeah, we often feel that way. But grace is something we've been taught is truly an unconditional gift. And I close with this story. I don't know, the older I get, I read a few more obituaries. I don't know what that is about me, but they're pretty incredible, these obituaries that are written today. This one is in the Globe this week. And I just looked it up again. This dear soul, her name is Victoria from New York State. She passed away, and her obituary was pretty incredible. Victoria Ruvolo. So Victoria, she has a great sense of humor. She was known as the Turkey Lady. And I know we laughed. She said, but I guess I didn't recall this. My wife recalls this so vividly, but about 7 years ago, a bunch of teenagers just being hellions got a credit card, went out and got a turkey, frozen turkey, somewhere along in New York State. Driving down the road, one of the goofballs, Ryan, throws the turkey out, hits her windshield. Her friend saves her life she gets knocked out instantly. And she was in surgery, and for months she had surgery for her face reconstruction, and she was never quite the same. And with her great sense of humor, she actually even said in her healing that, if they'd thrown a ham, they might have been calling me Miss Piggy, but she goes, I'm known as Miss Turkey now. This woman's incredible. And Victoria, wherever she learned about grace and forgiveness, God bless her and her soul as she rests now with God. But this is a true story, because when the state police and the attorneys there were working on the case, they wanted to throw the book at the young man. He was like 22, did a stupid thing, and they wanted to give him at least 20, 25 years state penitentiary. She got up in front of the judge, and she argued for leniency. With all her face never to be the same, all the injury that she had to overcome, she stood up and she said to the judge she really wanted something to become beautiful of this young man. And, I think of somebody who lavishes unconditional love with somebody we would all say probably doesn't deserve it. In this obituary, she speaks of kind of a healing journey for this young man and how he dedicated his life to making better decisions and being a better human being. And she says in her obituary she couldn't ask anything more than to think that not only that, he was given a very lenient sentence, not to 20 years, and probably mostly because of her grace and her forgiveness. These stories abound everywhere. I watched two daughters yesterday just have a very interesting conversation, and I end with this. Melissa, back from 4 months in Rwanda and Tanzania, ever to be changed, asking the big significant questions of life. How can we have so much here when she spent weeks with people that don't even have running water, don't have a washroom, they have a hole? How can Chelsea's like coming back from a protest at Queen's Park for teachers, realizing that jobs are on the line, class size, and Melissa's looking at her sister going, I want to be a teacher too, but she says, you know that I taught 150 kids. And the reality of there is in Tanzania, they've said everyone needs to go to school by age 18, but they forgot something. They are now, they haven't trained enough teachers. And so there's 300, 400 kids showing up and one teacher. And so I said, what was it like to teach 150, 200, 300 kids? And she said it was pretty humbling. And she taught from high school to younger kids. But then Melissa put out for all of us to see, and I'll have to bring it one Sunday, she put all the artwork, because she's an artist at heart. And she asked the students, and some of them were teachers themselves, because she got to speak and teach teachers, what was art? She had this, I'll have to show it to you. And they sketched, they drew beautiful pictures of what art was. And I close with this. Some of them said art was beautiful painting. Some of them said art was music. Some of them said art was modeling. Art was this and that. But the one that captured me the most was somebody put down, art is comedy. And I thought, you know, sometimes the grace and the laughter that we need in life, even in Rwanda or Tanzania, is the gift of laughter. And that is art as well.